Bonjour everyone. My today's guest is Vincent Moon, a filmmaker, an artist who has been traveling the world for the last 15 years and searching for and filming sacred musical traditions from all over the world, from absolutely different traditions and from the most hidden places on our planet. As he says himself, his work is a poetic exploration at the heart of sacred music, contemporary rituals, and art as a form of healing. His website, vincentmoon.com, has a collection, like really an unimaginable collection of more than 1,300 films available under open license. Vincent is someone who has witnessed and filmed hundreds of sacred ceremonies, who has found an incredible number of musicians who carry their traditions deep within them, who do music with their hearts, and who definitely know a way of tapping into divine. So please enjoy this conversation and Vincent Moon's work. Yeah.
Daniel.
So, bonjour.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Salut.
Okay. Thank you so much for finding time to talk.
Availability. It's
And
important
availability.
quality. Yeah.
But so let's start, and I'm really asking for like cheesy words these days, but for the space to open, for this conversation to happen in its ultimately lightest and best way. I think I waited for like a year to actually talk to you about so many things. And I did really, but with you I need at least like an overnight interview somewhere in the mountains, like properly under the stars, with the moon.
Might have to wait
to talk about so many things, but I hope I can find the right words come to my mouth to ask you the questions. So I've been tapping into you for the last 2 days, more and more into your work, and since I met you, I was like, who are you? Meaning that the amount of work that you've been doing as a filmmaker, as a human being, by shooting so many of the sacred and kind of hidden human spiritual traditions and ceremonies and rituals, that's a lot of work. And it takes a lot of courage, freedom, understanding, deeper understanding, technical skills, like many things. So I was like going through your interviews and the videos on your website, and I was like, who are you? And that would not be the quite appropriate question to ask you now, but like, if alien would come to me and say, hey Anna, like, show me what's going on this planet in terms of the really, like, how do you humans tap into the divine and the mysterious, apart from the big systems like religions and stuff? I would just give them your website because it's all there. A lot of it is there, honestly. So like a showcase of the planet Earth, humans doing their things to connect to the higher forces. So how, like, really, where do you find both physical and like spiritual strength and guidance to do all that?
I was thinking about strategy when you were mentioning all those ways to accumulate a lot of recordings, travel all the time. I live on the road. I live more on the road than ever now. I really reduced my properties, let's say, to very few objects, which allows me to have an incredible freedom to travel and to live on a day-to-day basis. I'm in a strategy in the sense that I've been very interested to see, well, my study is a bit of how do we live together. Of course, how do we live together with music in the middle, but really how do we formulate a society? What is a community? What keeps people together? What makes them transcend together? What do not make a community? How our society, our global society is definitely lacking some of those portals, maybe. And that study has been always also a study of like strategies on human conditions. How do we explore reality, in a sense, in a creative way, and which I think is is a much more important purpose since the birth of humankind than we think it is. Mm-hmm. Why do we live? I think many of our ancestors were maybe more living than we think through a creative lens on reality, inventing reality, making it happen, in basically exploring different forms of societies, of relationship to the land, of relationship to the spirits, and so on. So, and I guess I've basically developed a strategy to allow myself to do that, to explore as much as possible in a very, very free way, because I'm self-producing all my work. Yeah. I'm basically benefiting from lots of wonderful connections and friends around the world. Yeah. And by this, I created a network of movement, of fluids, which really allows me to pretty simply actually open kind of like any doors, and gives me, maybe that's the only courage there is there, gives me confidence to go towards the other, which is basically the only thing it takes, is really trying to go towards the other with an interesting idea, interesting project. Hello, I'm in town, I'm making portraits. That's what I do, I'd say. I make portraits of family, I make portraits of people in their creative work, mostly musical. Just right now, an hour ago, we were recording with Audrey Chen, a Berliner-based experimental musician, just at her place, you know, just for the pleasure of meeting, of recording something very beautiful, just her and her voice with a microphone, as simple as that. And for me, I really like as much to basically explore also. That's also what I wanted to say. In a sense, I do not only explore, maybe people amongst all of my work, they tend to nowadays focus a lot on the ritualistic, the indigenous, but it's not the majority of my work, in a sense, I would say. Now, I don't really look at music in terms of genres, I just really approach relationships, it's possible. I do approach those relationships, sonic relationships, in that interesting creative game, which is a recording session, which happens very fast. And I like that beautiful connection that it allows also, you know, that burst of energy, that very direct form to connect, without really rehearsing it, without overthinking about it, especially without projecting it. So then that's my strategy, you know, trying to stay present in the moment, you know, to develop this nomadic lifestyle, and to basically allow the camera to be a bridge towards the other, you know. If I didn't have a camera, it would be more difficult to go to the ceremonies in a way, just to participate, but I just try to participate with this technology that you might see in between, but which really acts as a bridge with the other. And that's what I've been really also interested in, like the emergence of all those digital technologies, because I do believe there is a way to still use them with a very direct purpose of connecting very directly with the human bodies. And that's what I want to say in a way, you know? Especially nowadays, even though I still publish all of my films on internet, which means basically people interact through a screen, I really try to spend as much time as possible to really gather people around me, around those recordings, and to be in the same physical space. Yeah. So anyway, that was a long answer.
Yeah, and yet, thank you. Like, do you really feel that you've been carried through this? Because really just to find the strength to do, like, how many videos during the year? Like 50, 60, 100? Like many. You do a lot of work. Like, you're non-stop shooting and filming. Like, I texted you the other day and you're like, I'm in between editing and shooting something else and filming. So, like, physically, like, Vince, where do you get the strength to do it?
Well, I'm getting older, that's for sure. My body is showing me also that it cannot carry me forever like that. But I mean, the excitement of of novelty, I guess. Keeps me going, the curiosity to explore more of those encounters, because at some point you accumulate so much that you gave yourself so many examples that you want to actually even grasp more. Example of let's say, it becomes a very primordial research on archetypal forms at some point. It's not really about the cultural diversity aspect. Of course, there is all those layers and still those informations are sort of like available. But my research is more and more towards a more abstract form of relationship in between all those moments, you know, and that I recombine specifically in the live cinema.
Yeah, you absolutely do. I remember how I first visited your like live cinema show. But I got completely entranced, like immediately. It was so, like my brain stopped, because the way you do it is that it starts going like in these circles, and then it starts being a kaleidoscope, and then one vision merges into another with the music, and it's like a trance for sure. This is what you do, and again, but to use some words is like a shamanic way of connecting me as a viewer to your work and to other people's musical work and everything. And like, how do you think you were allowed to shoot some of the really, you know, say crazy stuff where no one else is allowed to even, you know, barely come close to, like some mountain, you know, tribes and everything?
A lot of the time people are, doors were open in a sense that people are much more welcoming than we expect them to be, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's a very, that's a very interesting thing, is that everywhere I went, I asked and explained properly what I was doing. But many times, either people knew I was coming and they were like, yeah, sure, welcome, you're the guest. Or there was a deep excitement also to welcome me in places which maybe were not really on the map, or in a sense that people really didn't have much interest before. Let's say when I was in Chechnya, for example, quite some years ago now, I arrived in Chechnya knowing that there is a very strong Sufi culture there, but that's all I know, and I've never really seen any footage, any recording, because there was really not much of that. And obviously when I was in Chechnya, the first thing people were wondering why I was here was what kind of like problem was I basically documenting, probably as a journalist and so on, because they've been used to only welcome people for their own tragedies in a way. And I was like, no, I'm here to document, to research on like Sufi ceremonies and so on. And I got invited in 5 Sufi ceremonies in a row over 1 week, bing, 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 bing. Yeah. And people were like, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's very genuine, very simple, authentic. Yeah. It's like, oh, he came the whole way for that?
Yeah.
Cool, people are very happy to receive most of the time. That's very important first thing to realize about that. And then some of the most maybe secret forms of ceremonies. Every time I make a film, I send it to the people to let them know what I can show and what I cannot, in case, even though before, I'm often, people warn me, you cannot film that part, you cannot film that object, you cannot film that direction, for different reasons. Once I remember I was in the streets of Bogota, I was completely mad. Very different research, you might say, but not that much. I was filming a rapper from the south zone of Bogota, incredible hip-hop guy, Serras Negras. And on the way to the south zone, where we organized a show in the suburbs, it was tough. It was pretty wild, actually, mamma mia. We did it. But anyway, on the way, we stopped by another neighborhood that I knew we should not go, which was Cracolandia, massive, very dangerous place, one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the world. And we arrived there, I'm like, fuck, Serras, what the fuck are you doing here? And he's like, I told a friend that we're making a film, and basically I owe him something, we have to basically film there. And there we are in the middle of the street, and I remember, it's like in that case, I was not supposed to film in that direction because the guys were ready to shoot, in that case. And so I had to really film them going down the street, rapping like that.
Yeah.
And it was very, so basically you adapt yourself to the rules of the space, in any kind of like situation. Mm-hmm. And then you play with the limits. And it's very interesting to realize that there is always a space to explore. There is maybe more or less limits on the way you can look at it, interact and so on. Mm-hmm. But still, I've always been enjoying to make a sort of like a guerrilla form of filmmaking, which is also very much dancing with those possibilities all the time, Yeah.
But how do you not get carried away by this? Now, literally, like even when I'm looking at your videos, especially at your live cinema shows, some stuff is really strong, Vincent. It's really super intense, like the ceremonies, or it may not be the ceremony, but just the music someone's playing. It's so intense on all levels, and I feel so happy and honored that actually you shot me once, actually a year ago, to play the Spiegel in Spiegel, and it was so amazing that it was so beautiful. But you were as if there with your camera, but not there. But you were part of the space, but you were like as if invisible. So that was like super special experience for me, to feel that I'm being filmed, but I'm not at the same time. But some things that you film are really intense. So how you go through that stuff with all these people from Java to Brazil and Chechnya, everywhere. How do you not get carried away? Like really, do you feel like safe or present? Yeah, but I mean, some stuff is really strong stuff.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, a lot. And I guess, I don't know, I have maybe this composition which allows me to go into that, to go in the middle of the fire. Yeah. But it's not, I mean, very rarely my life is in danger, I remember like a year or two ago, I was in India. I ended up in this Teyam ceremony in the north of Kerala. The Teyam are like a specific set of like ceremonies and gods belonging to one specific part of Kerala there. It's marvelous, very probably the most beautiful ceremonies in terms of villagers coming together and building an entire universe, especially in the invisible. Wow, it's stunning. And one of the most famous Teyam, because you can imagine one Teyam is a god for each village, so there's many different Teyams, and they all have different features, different costumes and so on. And one of them is the fire Teyam. And that's the most spectacular. That's the one that really everybody wants to see. So it's like an entire night outside, lots of people suddenly. But I'm the only foreigner there suddenly. I'm in a way, I'm like, fuck, this is the most exciting thing to see around. Yeah. Wow, dude, this is crazy. And we're in the middle of that. And obviously I am with the camera, so in a sense, again, people push me even closer and closer. I'm just there with the fire, the massive fire. And the Teyam arrives and starts to dance around the fire and start to cross the fire running. And the guys helping around are throwing more and more fire. And they at some point kick the fire out, and it goes all around in the crowd. Everybody starts to run stuff with the camera. I'm like, whoa! Yeah. Amazing, beautiful experience. And again, I think that proximity, in a sense, to be very honest with you, I think that proximity with death or with the danger has always been triggering me since a long time, but especially since I got into a deeper trance state myself through psychoactive forms of medicine, let's say ayahuasca especially, which basically brought me to such an extension of deep embodiment of a death state in a way, which is sort of like this complete process of the life, death, rebirth, kind of like that is very much associated specifically to the Amazonian forms of shamanism, that I guess I've been very attracted with this, that borderline zone, because I do believe it's a very needed zone, and our global societies have been evolving so much towards comfort, safe spaces, that I think we have to reformulate danger in different ways. Because it's a balance that we cannot escape.
But this is not for everyone. I mean, all this I'm not calling it all near-death experiences, but not everyone is prepared. And the reason why I asked actually is that I myself am looking for ways to really not to get carried away and to be more grounded when I'm experiencing something very intense. And I'm good at tapping into whatever there is. I get really so carried away. I go completely lost, as if I'm about to actually die, And I'm looking for ways to ground myself and not to get carried away. So I was wondering, how are you doing that? How are you yeah. I thought the answer was
it's a day-to-day strategy,
Yeah.
But that's also very important to understand. It's there is fluidity of relationship with your own rules, which is central to a creative lifestyle, as I like to have. Which is what I mean by that is that I'm reading this amazing book. There it is, actually. Funny. I'm reading this amazing book now. It's the latest book by David Graeber and another guy, David Wengrow. David Graeber, a great anthropologist and so on. And it's a book which treats about the prehistorical times, the new researches, the new discoveries on how our ancestors were living. And there is one common thread that goes through the amount of new findings, new informations of the past. And we're talking about very recent stuff, 10 to 20 years. There's been a lot of new discoveries which have been make us rethink completely the evolution of humankind. Except this has not been put together yet, It's wow, there's just so much. Which is basically also the problematic of a society of saturation. When it gets into such a saturated state, it cannot interpret anymore the world data. And basically it's a very interesting thing. There is this beautiful sentence by Carl Jung which keeps coming back to me, which says in French, it says tout ce qui ne remonte pas à la conscience revient sous forme de destin. Everything which does not come up on the surface of consciousness comes back in forms of destiny. Let's say in a cyclical way. And I do believe a saturated form of society which is not able to interpret the data of the research, the state of researches in different fields, is condemned to basically fall into the same trap. Which is, I think, a very interesting approach we can look at in a way that we are. It's basically going too fast now that we can analyze what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
But this book has been a fascinating 700-page research. My point is, there is a common thread in the way that they look at our ancestors, different tribes from North America to Papua New Guinea, to basically really a global research like that. Is that there is this extraordinary ability to recreate the society, to recreate constantly the way you live, to move, to be constantly on the move, to not really get trapped in any kind of specific uses of a land, to never really get trapped into any kind of system which it will create, especially, and that's very much the point of the book, will create relationships of power, Basically, how do we escape relationships of power? How do we escape the zone of control, which is very much then our generational kind of topic? It's very important to keep thinking about that, the fluidity of the movement, of the thinking, of basically your own set of rules. So in a sense, how do you not get carried away? But you have to reinvent yourself every day because you have no idea of what's coming next, and it's never the same sort of experience you're going through.
That's for sure. But also all this, let's be honest, all these bigger systems, they are now ruling the world. Just look around us. I mean, what's actually happening, and it's as if in our societies, though many of us tend to find these alternative ways of recreating the society, right? And what you've been attempting to do as well. It doesn't seem to work on the global scale, to be honest. Well, that's a whole different
It's related, but no, it's definitely. I mean, our society is absolutely not working. Let's be very, very clear on that. But I guess what's really important to keep in mind is this what this indigenous chief Bira Yawanawa, the chief of the Yawanawa tribe, very small but very powerful and developed in a sense spread. They've been spreading their knowledge pretty well in the past 20 years. They live in the in the Brazilian Amazon at the border of Peru, and he said to me once that the problems that our global society will have in the collapse of its own system starting, let's say now, that we're not able to adapt. Or the white, let's say, that civilization has not been able to adapt. And if he was talking about the indigenous people spread still all around Brazil, if they were able to still be alive and maintain so many of their cultural specificities after 500 years of genocide, it's because they were able to move. They were able to escape, to reformulate constantly their living and so on. And he points it very clearly, the impossibility that this global society have now is to adapt. It's just the latency is insane. You cannot, as a global vehicle, really change the course. And that's the drama that we're facing, because we see the fucking iceberg and we're like, fuck, and everybody's like trying to put that. But the energy going through that. Anyway, it's been carried like this for generations over generations. I think this is just a result of what, that's basically a dead hand, Not a hand, there's no hand, but like a dead hand for the system. Yeah.
It feels to me that we're soon going to witness something else, like emerging out of this inability to evolve in a certain way, or I don't know how to put it right, but I think the further years are up to show us something really exciting on a global level. Well,
many things.
Yeah.
And we have no idea.
No, we have no idea, that's for sure. But you like that.
Yeah.
Me too, actually. I was also I really want to ask you, so as someone who's witnessed, again, so many people, so many humans in different parts of the world, tapping into the mysterious, tapping into divine, tapping into completely unknown, where there are no rules, you don't know anything. So you've seen so many different traditions and ways. How do you see anything, how do I say, in common? My question goes, what's the essence when humans are really striving for more, for unseen? That's the first one. And in the same question goes, what would be the all in all technical means that humans use? It seems to be music and dancing, to be honest, and collective movement of any kind. But what would you say? Because you've seen hundreds. So I think you are the person to actually sit with all of them, analyze it and say, okay, guys, in order to do this and that, humans tend to do this, and this is how it works. So, kind of, but really, what do you feel is in common in all of that?
I think I dropped the idea of understanding it as a system, I've been really interested in different forms of theories. Actually, Alan Lomax himself, at the end of his life, formulated some very interesting choreomatrix, if I'm not wrong, form of a theory about movement spreading around the world. Very interesting stuff. Very interesting because Alan Lomax, this crazy ethnomusicologist of the 20th century, is probably the guy who has been traveling the most ever on the planet, if you think about it. So in that himself, from the 30s to the 70s, 80s, really saw an extraordinary amount of cultural musical expressions and so on. And then, of course, he tried to come up with a system and so on. I'm interested in the magic that goes through all that. When I mean about the magic, I'm interested in as I said a bit before, the archetypes that I see emerging in all those different figures. I'm very interested in personally, because it's let's say it's an archetype that I feel I belong very much to. I'm interested in a specific figure that you might find under different names, depending where you are, that specifically in Afro-Brazilian traditions, religions, is named Eshu, that you might find in other parts of mostly animist forms of spiritualities under different names, but it is always this kind of like interesting shape of what you could claim as I like to call the sacred clown. Okay, and the sacred clown, for example, is one of those formulation of, let's say, what energies of it's also a trance state in a way that I feel connected with and I see very often in different parts of my travels, you know. This is embodied in different ways, it takes different names, but it very often have sort of a similar movement as well, which is very interesting. I'm very interested in like the trance state for that moment where the movement is generated from a higher force, maybe a higher consciousness, and what shape does it give to the body, you know? And then it's fascinating to see that in different parts of the world, well, bodies do actually are shaped in the same way.
By shape, you mean a certain dance? Or
yes,
like,
yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. The physical expressions and so on, you know? So it's part of the research I'm having. But in a way, it seems obvious that we are full of crazy people.
Yeah.
It seems obvious that humankind have been spreading over thousands and thousands of years, took many different shapes, different paths and so on. And now it's the moment where suddenly an incredible acceleration through the devices, through the recording ages and so on, and through the acceleration of exchanges, we are sort of like faced back with almost mirror-like forms of ourselves, you know? More than ever, you know, more than ever. It's a very, very important impact on reality, and we sometimes forget about it, but we see way more images now than 10 years ago. Of course, than 20, and even more than 30. But the amount of images that are coming through us is completely changing the way we look at reality around us, and especially at those connections in terms of music. Of course, those like musical connections from different parts of the world. And you see this happening now a lot, you know, incredible bridges are being made because it seems there was this like common ancient thread, you know. It's not just now getting revealed. But that's kind of like this sort of like cyclical natural process, I think, of, you know, reconnecting this global planet. I find it absolutely fascinating, and there I see sort of like a certain purpose in a humankind form of evolution of consciousness on a global scale, going through that sort of like new evidences, you know. Anyway, evidences, poetical ones at least.
Okay. Vincent, do you think there is like light and dark? Meaning, again, you as someone who's witnessed so many humans tapping into different kind of stuff, do you like perceive some stuff like, okay, this is dark shit, you know, like really properly, or this is like really something that when you feel there is pure light that's shedding on you, and this is that. Do you differentiate that?
So, it's a bit questioning, you know, the good and evil, kind of like a dualistic form of society that we are.
Yeah. How do you perceive it, like personally?
Once someone asked me actually a question about some ceremonies that I was attending, filming, and it was like, but how do you know if it's not just fake, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And my answer was straight on. I was like, no, everything is real, man.
Okay.
I mean, everything is real.
Okay.
And that's kind of like, and it's sort of like it came to my mind at that time, and I was like, actually, yes. Makes completely sense. Everything is real in the fact that it activates reality. Any kind of those ceremonies might be more or less well made, you know, well prepared, with more or less, you might say, good intentions, people might be more or less crazy.
True.
And it's happening all over, you know, and I really all over, and I really, it's like, it's very complex, and the spiritual works everywhere around the world has always been and will always be a very complex deal with reality and with those forces, because you bring to life, to the spot, very powerful portals for people. Then I've been really enjoying to look at it with a very, as much as possible, non-dualistic perspective, meaning that coming from an artistic world, let's say, I'm not an anthropologue, I don't come from an academic background, I don't have that seriousness behind my work, I'm much more that sacred clown maybe that I was describing before. Coming from that angle, I started to see ceremonies very quickly as a wonderfully well-made performances, very achieved in the way they were bringing musical, colorful food elements and so on and so on. Like, you know, as if when I was witnessing more and more ceremonies, like from Egypt to Brazil and so on, I was realizing that what was attracting me there was this communal community of all senses and of all genres, you know, that you needed all those elements, and the music was not the centerpiece. That was really this desire to build something together. Just to say that, because I've been more and more interested to look at this game in between, it's a funny way to put it, between a shaman, this kind of like a very cliche but very serious, grand approach of the spiritual teacher, and the showman, who is also, and I would claim that, who is actually an emanation of the same. And if you kind of like, and that's basically looking at it with just a very simple, non-dualistic perspective on that. We are activating forces in the invisible, and we've been doing this since the most ancient times. We used to call it medicine, we used to call it, you know, shamanism and so on. And little by little, things have been spread around, and then we have now all those artistic genres who sort of like talk to each other or not, mostly not, because we created all those different boxes to present them, you know. So you go to see a music concert in a music venue, you go to see the film in the cinema and so on. And then you're like, oh, it seems that we basically exploded a little bit the whole thing. Let's try to tweak it back together and see how, from a very artistic actually perspective, if bringing all this together was not a way to revive actually the spirit inside. Because I do believe there's just this constant game in between the front scene and the backstage, you know. And in a sense, again, my own trance, modified states of consciousness, experiences, have been putting me in such a relationship, deep understanding of reality that that once you've been behind on the other side of the curtain, you know there is a curtain, you know? And it's a very beautiful thing to realize. And then you have a much more playful relationship with reality, you know?
Yes.
So I think I'm trying to achieve that, this beautiful play with mystery, always understanding that you're activating a curtain on reality, you know?
Yeah. Yes. You're so courageous and like free to do these things. I'm almost trying to tap into your vibes to learn them from you, which probably I cannot or can at my own, you know, scale. But yeah, I got a couple of more questions for you. Like, what would be like from this, like from this present moment, what experience do you recall as the one that really you felt like something transformed majorly or transcended in you? If that's too personal, you absolutely don't have to. But you know what I mean, like, because some experiences are just, you will remember them forever. You know, this was like a turning point for you in order to go in behind the curtain, maybe as you mentioned, or whatever it was. And can you recall something?
Well, I think we all have the, depending on all of us, but a few of those eureka moments. No, I don't have so many, but like there is a deep, some key moments where it taps and you're like, ping, up, ping. Okay, wow. I didn't get that before. Now, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, so there's a few things like that. Yeah, definitely. The first time I was in front of a healing trance ceremony in Egypt, it blew my mind. Completely blew my mind. It was the first time I was seeing it for real there happening in front of me, and then I was like, oh, of course, of course. I'm like, it was like, of course. Okay, now now I get it.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, and then you pull the thread. You know.
Yeah. It's like remembering something that you actually knew.
Yes, it's very interesting. There's a beautiful word like that, anamnesia. You know what's the anamnesic process? Which
is
basically
you completely forget what. It's like when you completely forget.
Amnesia is forgetting. Anamnesia is recovering the souvenir. Anamnesia, the anamnic state, is basically the sort of like very achieved, let's say, spiritual state where you remember everything. Remembering meaning also maybe remembering past lives and so on, depending where you come from. But there is this beautiful anamnesic relationship to reality. I think that happens sometimes in your life. You're like, I knew that. I don't know how, but I knew that. Bing.
Yeah, for sure. Those are super important moments for sure. And what would be then, out of everything, your like personal recipe for kind of healing yourself on both like psychic and maybe physical level? Because again, you've seen so many and you tried some. And there is also, I remember there was a video that you showed in the middle of your live cinema where there was some person who did a healing on you with whatever. There's so many ways to do it, but really, like, how do you recover? Maybe this would be an easier way to ask it. Like, you are all, dead and tired, and you're like, oh God, I really need like to recover. And so, how do you heal yourself? How do you take yourself to balance?
I keep dancing. You keep playing. You keep playing. I try to take care more and more of myself, but I realize that at the very heart of it, I really need to keep playing. And to me, the performative aspect is actually turning more and more into a simple healing form of ceremony for me. So it's wonderful to be able to share this, but it's also a very, very personal thing that I need to do. So it's like the integration of all those adventures seems to happen in that specific moment of putting them all together and creating a little sculpture which is gonna last for a few minutes, something like that. In that momentum. But it's an experiment. I don't know. Again, I never know. I don't know what's gonna happen. I have no idea if the rules I'm following today are going to be the same tomorrow, because I have to adapt myself. I'm changing. I'm turning 45 at the end of the week. Wow.
But I remember that you actually learned it. I was listening to one of your interviews and you went somewhere else, like in Brazil, and some guy told you, like, Vincent, you have to stop thinking. You have to stop planning as much. Just allow the life to carry you. And it seems like you kind of switched. I mean,
well,
to
little,
the other side.
yeah.
But you learned also to do that.
But that's the message that is... that you can find. If there is really one message that you can find in any tradition, it's that one. Just like surrendering to the moment and stop, which is basically the exact opposite that our society has been doing for the past decades. So okay, let's try to reconnect with that. I just try to apply this to my life, and that's been my strategy for a good living.
Seems like it. Yeah. Is there anything else you would really, or someone or somewhere you would really love to go and shoot?
Oh yeah, many places.
Like make a wish. Name 3.
No, share one. I'm very curious about places that I don't know. Places I've really never heard really about, or There's many of those places. But again, I think the most interesting space for me to work on now is how do you create those possibilities anywhere? You know, how do you create those artistic, musical, ritualistic, trance-like encounters anywhere you are? How do you allow yourself, especially to do that? You know, especially with all the baggage we have nowadays, you know, all that knowledge we've been accumulating. Well, let's try to piece this all together and experiment. And I think that's where I want to be more and more, you know, experimenting into that little temporary, maybe autonomous form of community, and let it roll.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. I have two, so I'll make it a big one.
Okay.
Last question.
I'll make a short answer.
No. How do you find peace in these challenges?
How do I find peace? Peace in what? In my life.
Yeah. Just keep on rolling. Your answer seems to be just to keep on going and to keep on shooting and filming and.
Well, that's an escape, you know, like many others.
No, but really, Vincent, like properly, because this is what, you know, the current world is all about. It's just so much. It's just so much of visual, of meanings, of text.
I'm not helping there.
Yeah.
I'm making 150 films a year. I'm not helping on silence.
Yeah.
Don't ask me about contemplation.
Yeah,
Maybe that's not my role there, you know.
Exactly. Also,
I find I find peace in my friends. Honestly, I find peace being with them and enjoying making new friendship. But I don't have a peaceful life, and I don't plan to have for a little while, and I'm fine with it. I'm just trying to explore it in a different way. But yeah, who knows?
You seem to be just blessed to do this work. I'm absolutely sure that you were sent here from like completely other universe. Like, okay, this guy is gonna come here to this planet with these weirdest humans who are really like lost all of their ancient knowledge and lineage. Okay, he's gonna help them recover, or at least film them, you know, in order to showcase it to
but come on,
other aliens or something.
Let's be honest. Many people are doing that, and in a much more precise way than I'm doing. Many people are researching and spend sometimes their entire life dedicating their time to get back that ancient wisdom, to bring back those forms of knowledge, to study why people were doing that and why is it important to do it again. And me, I'm just like basically jumping around, trying to connect some dots, but for a very simple reason, I guess. It's because I'm excited to see what people are going to do of that. All of the projects all of the stuff I'm doing, let's say, that Life Funny project, is really interested in open sourcing. I do believe that if you agitate a bit things, by giving them their own speed, their own will, their own energy, by giving them their own freedom, when I say things actually, I mean those little objects, film and so on, you spin them at a certain speed which gives them a twist, which is, I would say, their own energy, their own life almost. People can take them, play with them, twist them, connect them, draw them, think them, reimagine them, and let them come again, okay? So this is just what I'm doing. I'm basically just trying a few things like that and spreading enough seeds so that people can, anybody can use it again and pass it around. And again, and then again and again. And I really like that movement. I think that's just like maintaining the movement, I guess, is what I'm interested about, you know?
Oh God. I wish you that. For like more and more, you definitely have this bright star.
Thank you so much, Maria.
That's just keeping you going, and let it shine, Vincent. Thank you for talking to me and for doing the work. so much.
Merci à toi.
Yeah.
Clap.